Hello everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Today we are reading chapters 13 to 15 and we are reading pages 65 to 81, with it being irregular as normal but still going to be a long video because this is a big book by size. So without further ado, I look just like Buddy Holly. Let's begin. Chapter 13. The jackal lay on the bed, flicking back and forth between his new stations. They were everywhere. He and his partner had made quite a splash. Olivia killed the gorilla, also known as Sean Grady. A cheek creased with amusement, proud of her even though it must have been done for him. His Olivia, he sighed. He already felt the loss. The separation from her distinct as the knife grinding into his guts. Sean ruined everything they worked, no, what he, the jackal, had worked so hard to build. He paid the price though, didn't he? He sure did, and he got what he deserved for being a selfish idiot. The jackal knew what would happen as though reading it in a script. Sean had slipped before and visited one of the girls alone. He returned to their place, well, Sean's place according to Mortar and Bill payments, and the jackal didn't appear in any documentation anywhere, and sent something off, killed her. The jackal didn't appear in the killed her. Usually a TV or a radio would be heard somewhere in the house, but his house was silent. Sean's truck was parked in the garage, so he knew Sean would be home, but he didn't see him and he didn't hear. And then the jackal knew Sean would be in one of the soundproof rooms. His heart jumped, thinking they might be visiting Olivia without him. A jealous anger fired in his chest. He snatched the key, sat down the basement stairs. He stuck the key in the lock, set it to turn, pulled it out a panic flick of the wrist. In a goddamn hurry, he pulled on his mask, his heart punched his ribs. So worried that Sean was doing, and who with, and he hoped to God he didn't believe it wasn't Olivia. He forgot the one he should never forget, the goddamn mask. It proved anonymity would keep him safe. A careful man, he read about the blunders of their adventures, hunters of the most interesting game, potential victims escaping by virtue of luck, or the killer's complacency of reporting them to the police. Able to identify for some of them, even able to point out the house or apartment. That's how got Jeffrey Dahmer arrested. Something similar got Ted Bundy caught too. The possibility existed for one as charged as an escape. Very narrow, yet such things have happened before. To limit it, the jackal had rules. Always wear a mask and always visit in twos. That way, if one ever overpowered, the other would be there to help. 2 to 1. Always 2 to 1. The safety ratio. And even if there some fluke the person made it out and went to the cops, neither one of them would be identified. Very simply rules. Even an idiot like Sean would have no trouble following them. Clearly he did. After he got his mask on, he returned to the door and opened it. Olivia seated on the bed and her knees drawn up to her chest, tense, and he peered in. He closed the door. Sean wasn't there. He checked the newer girl, Sandra. He couldn't remember. Sandra, Sandy, whatever. That's where he found Sean, running on top of her while she cried, his mask forgotten on the floor, his sweaty ass cheeks clenching like a fist. The jackal closed the door, Sean unaware of him entering, and waited for him in the kitchen. After some time, he heard a heavy door clink shut and the heavy tread of the wooden stairs. Sean paused when he saw the jackal sitting at the kitchen table, a bottle of water in his hand. A twinge of fear flickered in his face. There and gone. He smirked to hide the fear. Sean opened the fridge, took a bottle of beer, and drained half in one swallow. Thirsty work, that one. He acknowledged the jackal on the tip of the bottle and drained the rest. He leaned against the counter, preparing whatever Jackal had to say to him. Jackal stood, swinging the keys around in a finger. He plucked the knife from the twig and trotted downstairs. Wait, what are you doing? You didn't wear your mask. He let the door open to Sean to hear her screams. So let him know he f***ed up and they wasted a girl they could have kept a good long while. Jackal made quick work and had to restrain himself. Blood always excited him, the smell of the warmth of it. He wanted to bite into her when he saw the blood shoot out of the cut in her neck. It splashed on his face and onto his mouth. The blood was so warm the erection pulsed wonderfully as he wanted to bite, but thought it was supposed to be a lesson Sean about self-control. It wouldn't do if he lost control. He left her with a sigh. The gash in her neck resembled a bloody trench. Blood filled the skull in small spurts as he held her in his arms. He looked into her eyes. He watched her go and whispered to her, "It's okay. It wasn't her fault. It was Sean's." He gurgled, closed her eyes. What a waste. He returned to the kitchen, blood up in elbows, red gore glistening in his chin. He tossed his knives into the sink, studying Sean, said, "You want to do this on your own? Go solo?" Sean looked down his feet, a submissive gesture, and said, "No. Maybe change the rules then. Tweak them a little. Seeing as how you can control yourself, it might be a good idea to change them." Jackal sucked blood out of his fingers, waiting for Sean's response. "I can't control myself." "Really? So you meant to go down there without your mask on? You meant to do all those things, did you?" Sulking, Sean said, just happened." The jackal laughed. A short bark, bloated with incredulity. "It just happened? What were you going with?" The Jackal crossed the space between him in a flash, gripped Sean around the neck in his hand and squeezed. Sean's eyes budged, surprised at the strength of the Jackal, and he lifted him onto his toes. Sean pulled at the Jackal's wrist, succeeded to lessen the pressure of the grip. The Jackal wouldn't let go, not until he wanted to. I'm not an idiot. It would make a mistake to treat me like one. Do you understand each other? Sean gurgled and offered a weak nod. The Jackal released him by leaving a red smear on his neck. I found you. I brought you into this. In order for us to continue working together, to our mutual benefit, I should add. You need to control yourself and reckless impulses. The rules are there to protect us. The rules will keep us out of jail. So I'm going to ask you again. Do you want to go out on your own? Now's your chance if you do. John potted on the floor. You're going solo then, or what? Sean's lip protruded. God, what a fucking kid. The Jackal could read the idiot's thoughts on his face. Even as stupid as Sean was, he didn't know it wouldn't get out of your life if he wanted to do it on his own. So he was weighing his chances against the Jackal and wondering if he could take them. He could see the show that thought process of Sean's body language and his blinking eyes. The Jackal almost wanted him to try it. It would be interesting for a short time to take him for the kill the asshole. It would ruin his setup, though. He would have thought to leave the house and burn the evidence and the girls with it. Except for Olivia. He would always take her with him. He said, no, I don't want to go solo. He pointed at Sean, a bloody finger inches in his nose, and said, good. Then follow the fucking rules and prepare her for the freezer. It was good to get it out in the open. For Sean to acknowledge the Jackal ran the show. Sean was perfect for pinning all of this on. Jackal ever needed to. As long as he maintained his power structure, he could manipulate as he needed. For Sean, it was just being painful realization to learn more of not the baddest wolf in the forest. The Jackal thought he took it well. Although, in retrospect, he may have been wrong. He thought he cured him of what he needed to disobey. He should have taken the opportunity to reinforce the need for rules, the resentment for needing the building in Sean for some time, feeling inferior in every way a man could feel inferior, allowing rules he longed to ignore. He must have been eating him up inside, and Jackal had failed to notice it. Because of that, Sean went in for his beloved, his Olivia. Olivia killed him for it. He smiled again. This is why, my friend, he always visited in twos. Now the house was gone. His girls were gone. No one for him to visit anymore. He would miss them, especially Olivia. The smattering of freckles on her nose, man, delightful. Angry glares she delivered whenever they entered the room. He had her have a docile glint in her eye. None of them ever saw they could ever tame that one, and they have tried. That was where the fun lay, trying to take the resistance from them, to make them accept, believe that their life was no longer theirs to control. Everything about their radiated exquisiteness. It like she even tasted like heaven. Her ear tasted sweeter than the thighs on any girl she had eaten before. A tear slid down his cheek. He brushed it away and swept Pride's frown. What was this feeling? Why did he feel so hollow, so empty? Oh God, how he missed her. Fucking Sean. Stupid, impulsive Sean, robbing him of Olivia because of his stupid, selfish act. It didn't matter that he knew he had to kill her someday. He wanted to spend every available moment with her, smelling her skin, counting the freckles on her nose, and just being with her, knowing that he would do whatever he wanted to her, and she couldn't stop him. And then, when he couldn't control himself anymore, and he needed overtook control of him, he would take her. He would use her in ways to make Sean seem gentle. It would be a glorious time. If it hadn't been for the twit Sean, he wanted to destroy Olivia, to cut her, slice her open, and feel her guts swarm in her fingers, cover himself in the blood from head to toe, so she would be a part of him, blinded by blood. So wear her most intimate essence, break open her chest and yank her heart out from the roots and tear it into his teeth, witness the strength of her life ebb and the dying gaze, to finally take her, without his mask, without hiding, in such bitter exhaustion, he would destroy something he loved. Was there anything better in the world? His heart ached. It was all gone from him now. 5 years of foreplay and then have a moment stolen and rage to hurt him. How long would his agony last? He glanced at his news again, hoping to catch a glimpse of Olivia. His camera angle focused on the house. Cops in uniforms, hands and clasped in front, stood guarding the tape running down the property. There would be plenty of his DNA in there. Would he... That would only ever matter if he got caught. He had never been arrested or charged with any offense requiring a submission of his DNA. He had read that there were certain offenses, if convicted, a judge had the option to order a sample of your DNA to be obtained. He hadn't been arrested for anything at any time in his life, so he was safe, for now. He was free. He had never taken off his mask. The smart thing to do was simply disappear. Put away his mask and forget all those wonderful games and ply out his remaining years in tedium, and with only the memory of these deeds to sustain him. He walked away from the place without even identifying or being in handcuffs, and he knew he was lucky to have done so. If he had walked in for a fun-time visit with his girls before the cops showed up, he had been on his way to see Olivia. He had gotten there sooner. He would have got her right now, rotting in a cage he didn't build, and with that bad food and stupid cops for company. It had been a matter of minutes that they kept him free, or it would be out of despair such luck. He would have had to let her go, or would he? Or better question, could he? He could feel the tug from her, the pull on the rope binding them together. He wanted to wait a long time to take her, waiting for the mature into the woman. He had her. for 5 glorious years, painting her nails, braiding her hair, laying out comfortable clothes for her in the bed. Could he let her go? The jackal stared at the TV. Olivia's picture flashed on screen. He began sobbing. It hurt so much to have her taken from him, and he was mortified at his weakness yet helplessness against it. He asked himself again, could he let her go? He honestly didn't know. Chapter 14. Olivia flicked her hair to cover her missing ear. In doing so, the gap where her fingers used to be seemed more pronounced. Face it, kiddo, you're a goddamn mess. He sighed into a mirror, pushing down the impulse to cry. Ugly. They had made her ugly. Her eyes shiny. She swallowed and summoned her thoughts obnoxious. Safe thoughts like teddy bears and puppies. She had been home for a week now, and being back in her bedroom took getting used to. She dreamed of this, being home with her father, then being in the basement, but it felt more real of a dream than an experience. Justin Bieber smiled down from her from a wall. He smiled. Was he still cool? He had no idea, and that too was foreign feeling he found and didn't care. After what she'd been through, who would stop top of the charts and what celebrity did on the weekend, or who didn't matter at all. The interview with the police took 4 days to get done. They gave her plenty of breaks, driving her to and from home each day, and when it was all over, Olivia was drained. They had to farther along the investigation went, but there would be more questions than they asked, and they'd tell her again if that happened, and she said sure, and she wasn't sure. She wanted it to be over. And then she arrived home to being released from the hospital before the formal police interviews. The media crowded in front of their house. They patrolled the sidewalk, jockeying and pushing each other around, trying to get the best position and yell their questions at Olivia. They were rude and avaricious. They cared not all about her. It was a story so explicit. They yelled at her, pushing microphones in her place and forcing shoulder-mounted cameras in her way. They tried to block her path more effectively, surrounding her and the police, and her dad shoved them back, and one officer with a port wine stain on his neck, visible from above his collar, told them to act like goddamn human beings for once. He thought of the experience like it was being a celebrity. The weird kind, though. Not a famous of any sort of talent, musical or otherwise. No, her fame came from surviving 5 years of rape and torture and felt her mangled, terrified young woman. After passing through the rude people, desperate for a soundbite, she stepped into her house with her dad at her elbow. It was like walking into the past, a past had nothing to do with her. She felt like a stranger in a familiar place with the pictures of herself smiling and friends hung on the wall. Like going to a wax museum, seeing a celebrity you recognize. But still, after all the work and attention to detail, there was something off. The connection, the real subdued, and lacking any shine of soul. The girl in the silver picture frame wearing a black graduation gown and a cap doesn't exist anymore. That girl attended honors in high school. She had friends, a future, something to look forward to, expectations of normality, and a feeling of entitlement, of happiness. She also had both ears, and all her fingers and toes. That had never been raped. A naive girl who didn't feel like the boogeyman. Who could she be now? Freed from pink basement of horror, but now the different person she went in. She pushed her hair back, exposing the numb of flesh and marked the little remainder of her ear. She tied it back in a ponytail, not caring for how it looked in the moment. This is who she was now, and remember there was no hiding it, especially the privacy of her own home. When she went out, then what would be different, wouldn't it? She didn't want people to stare at her. She wanted peace. In the kitchen, her dad hovered around the stove. They smelled frying eggs, bacon, and toast hung in the air. Harry was back in her head. You want it scrambled? Yeah. That would be great. You got coffee brewing there? No, I'll set that up. No, I can get it. Alright. The kitchen overlooked the front lawn. The yellow curtains brightened the dreary winter daylight, filtering out the gray. Well, in the road, parked in the front of their house, were the 3 new trucks, idling and plums of the vehicles struck in the air. Those idiots still there? Harry said. They showed up 30 minutes ago. No wonder so many people hate the media. I almost feel like bad for those celebrities, always in the pictures of those tabloids. Must be exhausting. I'm exhausted just by thinking about them. Harry patted her on the shoulder. Since she got home, he always found some way to make her physical content. Almost like he was testing if she were real, and not a fantasy. She knew how he felt. None of this seemed real. The basement, the pink walls, the bolted down furniture felt more tangible to her. She could get a vision of a spot of blood on the floor under the bed where the gorilla had snipped off her index finger with those fucking shears. She loved those shears. He commented on them all the time and how great they were. How especially they clipped through bone. The finger rolled under the bed as it sailed through the air. They could reach it. Not with the bed bolted to the floor. He remembered the gorilla complaining as he lay flat on his stomach, using a bedroom and snagged an index finger and draw it in towards him, pissed about having to get the finger and not being able to clean up the blood. He ever silent jackal later bandaged her hand with care. How she hated those fuckers, and one of them was still free. Why couldn't it all be over? She escaped and she wanted to be done. Isn't that how it's supposed to work? Harry said, You okay? She flinched, drawn out her memories, gave him a tremendous smile, and said, Yeah, I think so. His eyes slid to her ear. He pulled onto her quick hug. He said, Why don't you sit down? I'll make a coffee. He pulled away. No, I got it, Dad, really. All right. He put a filter of coffee milker, scooped in the coffee, filled it with water, and turned it on. See, not so hard. You forgot to plug it in. She frowned until she saw the plug in the outlet and said, Hardy hard, Dad, and playing fully bumped in with her hip. Out of the window, the sliding door of one of the news vans rolled in. A man in a red toque and a dark blue jacket waved at her. He scowled, raised the camera with a huge lens and snapped pictures of her. He moved away from the window and sat on the table. Harry closed the curtains and said, "Those people," he shook his head, "have no souls." Harry clicked the iPod and music, riding in the air around them. He finished making breakfast and poured coffee. Sitting at the table, they were initially silent, eating, content with eating each other's companies. Harry said, "So we got to discuss what we want to do here." "About what?" "Well, living here for one. Also, I'm going to have to go to work next week, and you're going to be here alone. That other guy is still out there. Cops are pretty confident he won't come after me, and they gave me an alarm thingy, that push-button thing. The one you're supposed to always have on you." He pulled the alarm activator out of under her collar, and he attached it to a letter string. "It's right here, Dad." "Good. I'm glad you have that to you. Still, it's not like you're going to find out where you are." He jerked a thumb at the window. "Not with those jerks out there." Olivia suffered at the same thoughts. Last night they were trying to sleep. She kept glancing in the window, expecting a jackal head to appear. He would turn to her, hands pressed against the glass, an excited breath, a fog of pain. Needless to say, she had trouble sleeping. Still, considering her room was on the second floor, he would have to levitate or use a ladder to see her in the window. And he would have to drag the ladder through a crusted snow paths and well-lit yard of the neighbors. Still, once the thought took root in her brain, it became possible to yank out. At night, when the moon shone bright in the window, the wind pushed against the house, creating noise you'd never noticed before. Silly ideas became plausible. Dark thoughts grew teeth and bared in the recess of imagination. Even though the police and her dad took steps to protect her, she didn't feel safe. Before she even got home from the hospital, Harry had someone install an alarm. The police gave her a plunger alarm, too, at the same time, usually reserved for victims of domestic violence. The alarm wasn't bigger than a lipstick container and easy to use. To press the button at the top and the signal would be sent to the police to respond to their home in priority 1. Lights and sirens all the way. Even impressed by accident, the police were obliterated to see her in person to make sure she wasn't being held hostage or being forced to lie to them over the phone, telling them everything was all right. Police regularly patrolled her street. She would have given them a pass 20, 30 times in a day. The jackal would be crazy to come after her. He was crazy, a loon, but not uncontrolled and impulsive type of mental illness. To come after her, he would almost have to be one to get caught. She couldn't see that in him. He would be controlled, quiet, that one. She was too much attention on her now. It would be too dangerous for him to come after her, especially with the news vans parked out front. They wouldn't be there forever, though, would they? Something worse would happen and they would be old news. Then, at some point, with no action, the cops would stop driving by, and maybe, if enough time passed, they would ask for the alarm back. And then he would be out there, waiting for her under the bed, ready to snatch at her passing feet. She'd rather be dead than spend another second in a prison constructed by the jackal. Moving and disappearing from sight might be the best idea. He would be hiding, which wasn't the ideal way to live, but she at least would be alive. He wouldn't be a prisoner in a pink cell dreading the screech of the metal door opening and admitting two animals being to devour her. After some time, he might be able to breathe again. Being home while knowing the bastard would stalk the streets and might show up any time made her feel like she had been holding her breath, waiting for the worst, and the worst was that she'd gotten used to, wasn't it? 5 years of it. Hard to shrug off the chains those years had created. Would she ever feel safe again, or would she always be looking over her shoulder? If the jackal were dead, maybe it would be a little easier to breathe. Maybe she could finally exhale. Olivia said, "Moving could be a good idea. We'd have to wait for those ass clowns to leave. I'm sure they'll find some other misery to circle over." Harry smiled. "Ass clowns? I like it. You have a way with the words, my dear." His expression darkened as he said, Would you like to have a gun around? We could both get a license, practice at the shooting range, you know? We could both be comfortable with one." "I don't think too much right now, Dad. I'll consider it." "Okay, no problem." She had thought about it, though, and then researched it. He wasn't sure how she felt about it. Unless she carried it everywhere, it wasn't much in use. In the house, the firearms would have secured in a locker, the ammunition would have be stored in a separate place, and the firearm would be loaded. He could imagine it. The jackal shows up and he kindly asks them to wait until she unlocks the gun locker, takes it to where the ammunition is stored, load the gun, and then shoots him. All in all, not a realistic expectation, not worth the effort to get one. It wasn't like she could take a gun off the house either. Not in the way she could access it quick if she needed to. There were transportation requirements. You're not allowed to carry them around outside just under your coat or something. She wasn't living in Texas. She could think about it, though. Might be some insurance in it. Hell, she might even have one loaded by her bed for the law. It wasn't like law rescued her from that basement. She did all that by herself. Something to consider anyways. She did have another idea of protection, though, but it wasn't the first on her list. The cops were still vigilant about patrols with the alarm around her neck. They were quick pressed away. That part of her plan she could wait for now. There were other things to get done first, like getting her dad to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. She'd seen him in the evenings, drinking until he slurred words and walked in unsure steps like the room had tilted on him. She didn't like it. She wasn't the dad that left behind. Her absence had left scars on him, too. Her return wouldn't magically healed him then either. But why would it? He developed the addiction to her absence after all. It was an addiction. It concerned her at first. She didn't think it was bad as it was, but she had gotten home all that long. Only then she noticed a drink every night, and not just a beer with dinner either. By the time he went to bed, he was usually 6 or 10 beers in. She saw a stack of empties growing in the garage each day. Even this morning, she saw him toss a couple of Tylenol in his mouth, and try to chew him. A stale smell of alcohol hovered around him all the time. Even after the shower, his eyes were puffy and red for most of the days. He hadn't drank like this before he had been taken. She knew that. This was something new. Well, new to her, to him. It seemed a well-practiced routine. He sipped on his coffee and touched her hand, a reassuring touch. A good dad, to hurt her, to see him suffer. He would have been started drinking if she hadn't been taken. Not that it was her fault and be blamed, but the addiction was something she had inadvertently helped to start. For 5 years, he had no idea when she was alive, and he was open to coping tool for that. Alcohol? He wanted to drink right now. Two broken people. Maybe they could help each other. Maybe they could heal each other. A thought pulled her lips into a smile. She reached out and held her dad's hand. His lips trembled and formed a smile. They could get better. After cleaning up the dishes, Olivia retired to the living room, turned on TV. He crawled up to the couch, her knees up to the iPad on her lap. The TV droned in the background. Her dad sat in the chair across from her, a book open in his hands, ladling glasses at Olivia every once in a while. Harry said, Frank should be back next week. He called a few times, you know. Where's he been? Some conference. Big important contractors conference. Our only serious work getting done was drinking. Why didn't he talk to me? He sounded in shock. Kept asking if you're really home. I told him yes, you know. Asked him if he wanted to speak to you. It was like, no, just tell me how she is. Like if she spoke to you, it wouldn't be real anymore. What do you mean? I don't know. I guess like you when someone to pinch you and make sure you're awake when something incredible happens. With Frank, hearing your voice might wake him from a dream and return. Something like that anyways. I never saw Uncle Frank as that way. What way? You sound mean. I'm sure I can take it. Caring. Yeah, he laughed. Yeah, I guess I can see that. Just his way. But he does care. He never forgets your birthday, does he? I always thought it was because you an administrative assistant. That's all, Frank. Anyways, he'll be about sometime next week for dinner. Alright. She returned her attention to the iPad touchscreen. She kept wanting to use her index finger and nub remained. He stared at the pink scar tissue over the remaining bone. Pink, shiny pink, twisted skin, deformed. She had hated those bastards. It burned inside her all the times, pulsated in her hands. The almost dangerous one got away too, and the sounds of it, it would probably get away with it. The cops didn't call. She had asked them about it. After interviews were finished, she led the detective, a bald guy with dark rimmed glasses, avoided her eyes and then answering, giving her some platitudes. He had even given hundreds of other victims, as the world dissolved around them. Using lines from TV shows about cops, he asked her after nervous clearing her throat. We're following up a number of potential leads. It's time to possess all the evidence collected. We'll let you know. Blah, blah, blah. He did say something, though, something she couldn't stop thinking about. He repeatedly questioned her about the two men, and then he told him about the roles of the two men and how the jackal never touched her sexually, and had never spoken to her, brow creased and his lips pursed, like he wouldn't believe her, like he was making this up. She bristled and said, how many times are you going to ask me the same thing? I'm telling you. Not once did he touch me that way. Not once did the fucker even talk to me. God, why do you keep going over this? He reddened, the scant mustache dancing in the wither under her anger and confusion. Didn't he believe her? He didn't mean to get mad about how many times he would say the same thing, though. And when it seemed like a cop was fucking skeptical about the version of the events, like she would make this set it up for her amusement, she wanted to explode, rip the ugly mustache off his face. Didn't he know no one wore those anymore? Even ironically, they were old news before she had taken. She could still feel her veins and the eyeballs pulse. Like, that's how mad she had been. His hands flutter in his tie, a nervous tick and set her out. Look, I'm sorry if it looks like we're running around in circles here. I can't even comprehend how mad it must have been for you. Your story is like the other girls, Lucy and Jen, except for a huge detail. Oh yeah, what's that? This Jackal character, he raped the other two girls, or Sean, the gorilla. He also spoke to them at the time, giving them orders on what they wanted done to him, and he wanted done to his pal, Sean. They both punished him, never so gentle with him as you described as with you, never bending their nails, and yeah, he did bandaging the other girls with just no kindness, if you can call anything they did was kind. So you see, it's odd. I mean, why didn't he ever touch you? I'm glad he didn't. One answer would be enough for anyone. I'm asking all these questions, and yes, they seem repetitive. But I want to know why. Why not you? Why didn't he even talk to you? Curious, don't you think? Son, she said, downright fucking weird is what I think. And that's weird, totally insane. It's continuing question motivations of the jackal. What did he get from it all? Never touching, never abusing her the way the gorilla did, or even speaking to her. There's no friend to her. He would have helped her escape. She figured like he liked to watch. With the detective's revelation, it now appeared to be something else. A sickness only the jackal could understand. Why not her? Thoughts squirmed like snakes in her stomach. She leaned back, apprehending the detective. Not as stupid as he looked. Well, maybe he was. One good question was how a genius make. His skeptical tone was rankled her. Sitting in her living room, her eyes vacant at the iPad screen, she couldn't get the thought out of her head. It popped up then, pushing out any good feeling might have had. Fleeting those moments were. She knew the jackal felt something special for her. Whatever it was, it prevented him from raping her and speaking to her. She didn't know what it was or why it existed, but it was there. As tangible as this touch. Did she remind him of someone? A mother he loved or hated? A sister? If so, why weren't they Lucy and Jen spared this touch? Were they all very similar? Height, weight, hair color. Hell, line them up and you might even think we're related. Why not her then? It scared her in a guilty corner of her soul. He felt relief. She hadn't been subjected to tag team horrors. The girl had it bad enough. But what did it mean? She could talk to the other girls, ask them about it. Would she, though? They had just been through with the evidence detectives, and from what it sounded like, they had been worse than her. If it had been that possible, Olivia didn't know she wanted to revisit it either. Talk about it again, though there were some women in a book club saying, oh, so what did it mean to you? No, she was not ready for that nonsense. Not yet. It was all too fresh, like pulling off a scab before it healed. She figured a little bit of the cartilage of a man in her ear. Why did they take in it again? So many slights, so many punishments. What would have been for the time playing nice, acting prerogative until the gorilla got close enough for her to kick him in the hanging bits. How he howled. Even puked on the floor. She was positive behind the mask. He was crying. Hearing him sob and watching him puke leak out of his mask, he thought whatever the punishment was going to be, still, it was worth it. Until they took her ear. No, wait, that wasn't it. They took the ear for not eating and messing in her bed. Time blurred for the events. Cruelty emerging from the other acts of violence for the kicks in the bits. They took her the big toe. A big secret part of her maybe wanted to get them mad enough to kill her. Like she wouldn't eat or get up to go to the washroom. Maybe they released her from prison in the most permanent way. Otherwise it provoked them like that. 2 days later they returned. The gorilla still hobbling a bit as he approached her. Those craftsman's clippers appeared in her hand. She knew behind the stupid mask of his was grinning ear to ear. The jackal held her down, pinning her head on the cold floor in the knee. The room itself had been warm, comfortably so, but the floor had always been cold. He placed the other knee in the small of her back and held her arms to the other side of the body. The other pulled straight out and thought the shoulder would pop out of the socket, flop loose under the skin. The girl straddled her legs, his weight grinding her pony hips against the floor. He said, "Punishment time." He cackled his clips together so she could hear and grabbed her foot. She kicked out of the gorilla, lost his grip, and slid further down her legs, to the back of her calves. She wouldn't lift him. He grabbed her foot and tried to move it. Too strong. All she could do was waggle her foot. He stopped wiggling when she could feel the cold blaze on either side of her big toe. The clippers crunched through her grin and stopped at the bone. She screamed. The gorilla's head, "Hold still, won't you? Just one more clip." The gorilla grunted as she heard the click of the blade bite for the bone. Her toe popped off and gorilla said, "Got it." The pain. Her body convulsed with it. The jackal held her down. She screamed until she thought the inside of her throat must be bleeding. The gorilla laughed. He picked up the toe and held it before her eyes. He said, "Another part, gone forever. Whittling away at you, dear. One piece at a time. Soon you'll be nothing." He dropped the toe, bounced, struck her nose, leaving a red splotch on the floor. No longer the part of her. Afterwards, the jackal tended her with a gentle ministrations. Yeah, he felt something for her. Olivia would never manipulate whatever it was out to her advantage. There had always been two of them in the room, and Jackal was the leader. She knew it with certainty, and she meant something to him. More than the other girls. Some connection. The Jackal believed they shared, and not spoiled a sorrow's romp. What should he see in her? He hugged her arms to her chest. He was still out there, biding his time. Like the detective, she thought about it significantly. The Jackal never touched her. Would he reveal his identity somehow? Maybe point them in the right direction. Olivia should talk to Lucy and Jen. Some questions need to be answered, and maybe those two bad would get answers. She wasn't ready to do that yet. She could wait, even if Lucy and Jen were ready to talk about it and another supervisor. Olivia needed more time and comfortable enough to talk about what all happened to her before she could discuss it. She never would feel comfortable discussing her emotions and talk about it again. So soon would be too much. She tapped the bottom of the iPad, her missing fingers notable in neon. It made her feel ugly, deformed, and she hated being reminded of it. Chapter 15. The Jackal's stomach clenched. He felt anxious about the time now. A mass stare blending in. No one noticed the anguish he suffered. Smart man, he knew it. Now to be forward to contact her, try to get her again. The play made sense. It would start again somewhere new. Work alone this time. It had been confident to have a helper, someone else to live at the place. To keep an eye on the girls as long as the person didn't visit the girls on their own. To find such a person again would be challenging. No, it would be next to impossible. He knew how rare had been across a man like Sean. Chance of finding another was slim to none, and slim to left the town. Besides, Sean had reason to fell apart. His foolishness had brought it all down. That and Olivia. His penis throbbed at the thought of her. He killed Sean. His news people confirmed it, although they didn't have to. He knew it had been her because Sean had wanted to hurt the jackal, and that was the best way to do it, to be intimate with Olivia when he wasn't there. Sean had paid for it, and wasn't him doing a punishing this time. He would love to see it. Seriously, how could Sean not realize the danger? It had been who had kicked him in the balls so hard he bruised for days. He smiled thinking of it. He had grinned under the mask when Sean crumpled and triumph shone on Olivia's face. So pleased with herself. It took a lot of restraint for him not to laugh out loud. He'd have stopped thinking of her, the memory of her face. Torture. He wouldn't stop himself from her turning on the TV, hoping to see her on the news. He would lean towards the TV, burning for a glimpse of her leaving the police station under guard or running into her house and scowling at the cameras while making sure her hair covered her missing ear. Excited him to see Lucy and Jen too. Not just nearly as much as Olivia, inspired him. The smell of her, the feel of her skin, and the golden tints of her eyes. He wanted to take her and use her to watch the fire and the strength drain from her eyes. He wanted to crush any hope inside her in his hands. And then when all her light had been extinguished, he would kill her. He wanted to taste her. Take all of her inside him. Absorb every essence through her flesh. They would be together always then. There was a better way to do than consume her. She frowned. Those thoughts were dangerous. He had forgot about her and move on. Everyone, the cops, Olivia were too high alert. To go for her again would be Sean type of move, the move of an idiot. The best way to get over her would be find another pet, another obsession. He decided to scout new locations tomorrow, find a new base of operations, figure out how to make it untraceable to him. He needed help to get busy. He was developing a junkie fixation on her. He supposed he always had it, an unhealthy need for Olivia, and part of it wasn't making it any easier. If truth to be told, it was making it worse. The next day, while scouting for new locations, he looked up and nothing noticed gravity closer to Olivia's house. Driving down the streets, thinking about nothing in his brain and idle. He noticed he was circling closer and closer to her. He cursed himself. Not a good idea. Shit like this could get him caught. Maybe she could be at the kitchen window as he passed. He was close to her now. Might as well take advantage of the situation. A cop car drove by. Weirdly, the jackal appeared unconcerned, though. His heart tried to climb out of his chest and pounding. Jesus, man, you need to let her go. Find someone else. A whole harem of others. He could glory in pounding with a cocking fist, tenderizing him until they landed in a plate. He needed to lay away from her. The jackal drove away. The cop car kept going. The jackal released a whistle of air. He stopped at the red light, thinking the red was the exact same shade she painted Olivia's nails once. He sighed. If he was making the right decision, then he would have to feel so bad. He had to give it time. What was his stupid saying? Time healed all wounds? Hippie nonsense. He needed to find some other distraction. Most definitely a female variety. And that's the end of that. At least for today. I'm noticing that's my new catchphrase. That's the end of that, and that's the end of that, and that's the end of that. I like it. It's a good catchphrase. So, I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. But before we go, I need to write down... I need to do two things. One, I need to grab my marker and do a check mark on this. Whoop whoop. Maybe I'll make a digital version so then you guys can join me on the whoop whoop of doing that. And second of all, I need to write down the new numbers, which is 82 to 101. Oh no, it's 82 to 10. Boop, 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 boop. 82 to 101, baby. And now it's chapters 16 to Mamu Zilla Money. There's no hash that grabs my catch. It's all just smells too funny. Am I feeling? 21. Yeah, 21. 13 years ago, I'm in Rocket Land. So in total, there's like 40 chapters. So we're actually halfway there. Oops, I read word of the last page, which said jackal. Ooh, scary. Yeah, 40. We are we're not halfway there, but we're we're almost halfway there. Next episode will be halfway there. And next episode, we're reading 19 pages. So, hey, you know. Will we ever be back on regular schedule? No, but we're going to have a really bad day no, actually, there's not a single bad day anymore. All these are shorter than 20 pages. So yeah, I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. If you like being fishing, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.